Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive into the world of Korean poetry. You shared some poems from Poems That Shook My Consciousness by An Jae-dong. Wow, even the title, just the title alone is
Yeah,
so
it
intriguing.
really pulls you in, right? It's like, whoa, okay, this is going to be powerful. So something that really like changed his view.
Yeah, you're right. You mentioned you're curious about this poet, An Jae-dong, his style, the themes. So let's just get right into it.
One of the things that really struck me was just how unusual his entry into the poetry world was. Like,
Right.
apparently he debuted in not just one or two,
Yeah.
but five. Five poetry journals and three prose journals,
At the same time.
all at the same time.
Yeah, that is unheard of. Like, even in Korea, which has such a rich literary history and tradition, it's like a literary explosion. Most poets, like, just one journal debut would be amazing. Eight, like, that just tells you right away. Okay,
There's something special going on.
yeah, I am hooked already. But then it gets even more interesting. So the source material also mentioned that he took a pretty big break from writing poetry from when he was in his early 20s until his mid-40s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of time. Makes you wonder, like, what was going on in his life? What brought him back to poetry after all that time?
It really does. It's such a fascinating question. It's like a mystery. Like, what what happened during those years? Did he have life experiences that shaped his voice?
Hmm.
Or maybe just like his whole way of looking at the world changed and that reignited this passion for poetry that he had?
You've got me thinking now. Well, let's try to see if we can find some clues in these poems themselves. Even just looking at the titles, we can see some of the themes coming up over and over again. Nature feels like a big one. Cherry blossom, summer languages, trees and wind. It's like he's so connected to the natural world.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And nature, it has this big importance in Korean art and literature. It usually symbolizes beauty and the changes that happen, time passing. I am curious to see how he uses nature in these poems. Like, are they just a background or is there a deeper meaning there?
Right. It's like every title is a little window into what's going on in his mind. And speaking of windows, there are also a bunch of titles that seem to be about relationships. You are my hope to you. And there's even one called Brutal Love. And then there's this one called Rafflesia Flower. I had to look that up.
Right.
So it's this parasitic flower, and it's known for being, well, pretty smelly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Those titles, they really get your imagination going, don't they? They make you wonder about these relationships. Are they romantic? Are they family relationships? Friendships? And then that Rafflesia flower. It's such a strong image. It's almost like he's challenging us to think about beauty in a different way. And it makes me think that these poems, they might not avoid those hard feelings.
Yeah. It sounds like he's ready to explore.
Oh, for sure. And then there are these titles that are more like big picture questions. The truth, freedom's boundary, life, and then nature is God. I mean, he's clearly really thinking hard about what it means to exist.
Yeah. Sounds like he's inviting us all to think about these deeper questions about life. And, since he took such a long break from writing, it makes you wonder if these poems are like his way of dealing with those years of silence, of trying to find meaning and make sense of it all.
Yeah. There's one poem in particular that I just keep thinking about, and I think it might give us some clues. My Universe Within. What do you think about that title?
Ooh, My Universe Within. It's like he's talking about this vast inner world we each have, a whole universe inside of each one of us. It feels like it's about self-discovery, about exploring those deep parts of who we are. I'm really interested to see how he does this with poetry.
Yeah, and the lines in these poems, they're just as captivating as the titles. There's this one line, even if there is no harsh midwinter, how can spring's warmth be known? It's from the poem To You, and I feel like it's saying something so deep about the nature of experience itself.
It is beautiful. He's really showing how important contrast is.
Yeah.
Experiencing both the good and the bad. It's like he's saying that without the hard times, without winter, the joy of spring wouldn't mean as much. It wouldn't feel as deep. And, maybe this goes back to the break he took from writing. Maybe he needed that time away, that winter, to really appreciate and understand the power of his own poetry, his own spring.
That's such a cool connection. Okay, here's another one that I love. It's from the poem Honey Taste, and it goes, the honey taste, I thought it was just sweet, but when a bee stung my head, I also learned that what makes sweetness sometimes hurts so much that my head breaks. Ouch, right. This feels so personal, like it's about a painful experience.
Yeah, it does. It's raw and honest. The imagery, it's so strong. Like the sweetness of honey next to the pain of being stung. It makes you think about what he went through. Maybe
Yeah.
it's about a relationship or betrayal or maybe even a creative struggle he had. the honey taste. Maybe
Oh.
that's like the first attraction to something. And the sting is the pain that comes with it.
I'm seeing a pattern here. Like, even sweet things can have a hidden sting.
Oh,
Okay, one more before we move on. This one's from Eraser, and it says, the eraser erases unnecessary writing or stains. While erasing, it also becomes smaller. It becomes smaller and eventually disappears. Unless it makes itself disappear, it cannot erase anything else. Many things in the world are erased and erased in this way. Wow.
no. Right. Yeah, that's powerful. It makes you think about sacrifice, things changing, how things come and go.
Hmm.
He's saying that to do what it's meant to do, the eraser has to disappear itself. It's like a metaphor for how sometimes we have to let go of things in ourselves to make room for new things to grow. It's amazing how he uses this simple thing, an eraser, to explain such a big idea.
It's like he's finding the poetry in everyday life. Okay, so we've got these really powerful lines, these interesting titles, but how would you describe his style? Is it traditional Korean poetry, more modern, something totally different?
That's a good question. From what we've seen so far, I'd say it's a mix of traditional and modern elements. The themes he's looking at, love, nature, searching for truth, those things are universal. People everywhere can relate to them. But I want to see how his language, the images he uses, and the form of the poems show how Korean poetry has changed over time.
One more thing that keeps popping up is this Korean word, dobdaegi. It means like shells or outer layers. And there are multiple poems with this word in the title, so I'm thinking it must be important.
Kapdegi. Yeah, that's a word with a lot of meanings. It's not just a literal shell. It's about protection, hiding things, a front that covers up what's underneath. It also makes you think about what we show to the world and what we keep secret.
That's a great point. So, with this idea of kubdegi in mind, this exploration of the outer layers and what's beneath them, what does that make you think about when you look at An Jae-dong's poetry?
It makes me wonder if these poems are his way of peeling back those layers, both in his own life and in the world around him. Like maybe he's exploring ideas of vulnerability, the masks we all wear, how we try to shield ourselves from the world. And knowing that he took this long break from writing, I wonder if these poems are his way of revealing something more, something that was hidden before.
That's a really insightful way to look at it. It's like he's inviting us to go deeper, to see past the surface level, to explore the hidden depths of both ourselves and the world. So, as we go deeper into these poems, what are you most excited to uncover? What questions are on your mind right now?
I'm really interested in the connection between those big themes and his own personal experiences. Like, how does his time away from writing show up in these poems? How does he use traditional and modern things to create his own unique voice? And how does he use this idea of kabdagi acha to explore what it means to be human? Those are the mysteries I'm ready to try to solve.
Me too. I feel like we're about to discover something truly special.
Yeah, and that sense of mystery, right? Like there are these layers waiting to be uncovered. It makes this whole deep dive even more exciting. What do you think?
Totally. I feel like we're kind of like detectives looking at clues in these poems,
Yeah.
trying to figure out, like, what was this guy thinking?
Yeah, and one of the biggest clues is this whole kabdagi aj thing. I just keep thinking about it. It's such a strong image.
It's true. It makes me think about how that idea of Kabdegi Achin could even be about the time he wasn't writing. It's like he built a wall around himself. He was hidden for a while. And now he's coming out of that, like shedding those layers to show something new.
Whoa, that's a good connection. Maybe those years when he wasn't writing were when he was changing on the inside, like shedding those old layers so something new could grow. And now, with these poems, he's letting us see that change happen. Like he's letting us peel back the layers of his own kabdegi on twos.
Yeah. I'm also really drawn to how he makes everyday things seem really important, like that line about the simple wooden chair. It's like he's saying that real beauty and strength are in those ordinary things, the things we don't usually notice.
Exactly. It's like he's telling us to appreciate the little things,
Yeah.
right? The things that are always there for us, the things that give us support. And maybe that's another part of what he's doing with these poems. After all, he stopped writing for so long, even though he clearly loved it. So maybe he found comfort in those ordinary moments,
Yeah.
in those sturdy chairs, so to speak, that kept him going.
Okay, let's talk about some of those lines that we loved. You mentioned one from Atuyu that you really liked.
Oh, yeah, the one about how you can only really feel the warmth of spring after you've been through a harsh winter. It's deep, but it's also simple. And it makes me think maybe he's talking about his own life here. Maybe those years without poetry, maybe that was his winter. a time when he was looking inward and maybe even going through some tough times. And maybe it's because of those experiences, that contrast, that he's able to write such meaningful and strong poetry now.
It's like he's saying that those hard times, those winters in our lives, they're not just something we have to get through. They're important for us to learn and grow. They help us really appreciate the good times, the spring moments, even more.
Exactly. And it makes me think of that other line you pointed out, the one from Biel about never falling down, even in typhoons or earthquakes. That image of never giving up, of standing strong even when everything is chaotic. It feels really relevant, especially thinking about his life and his writing. It's like he's showing us this inner strength, this determination to keep going no matter what challenges come up.
It's like he's saying we all have that strength inside us, the ability to make it through the storms and come out even stronger on the other side.
And maybe that's what makes his poem so powerful. It's not just about pretty words or metaphors. It's about what it means to be human. It's about our ability to bounce back, to grow, to find meaning, even in those really tough situations.
There was also that really interesting line from The Truth of Docto, John. The one that said Docto is not just one. It felt like he was saying something bigger, something beyond the actual island.
That line is especially interesting because of what Dokdo Island means to Korea. It's been a really controversial place for a time. So when he says Dokdo is not just one, he's making us think about its symbolic meaning. It represents national pride, resilience, a connection to history and heritage.
It's like he's saying that Dokdo is more than just a place. It's something that really speaks to the core of being Korean.
Exactly. And this idea that there's a deeper meaning in simple things, it seems like something he does a lot. Remember the line about the sturdy wooden chair? He makes something ordinary seem really significant.
It's like he's showing us that poetry can be found everywhere, even in a chair, if we know how to look for it.
Exactly. And maybe that's another clue to why he stopped writing for so long. Maybe he needed to get away from the world of poetry to rediscover where his inspiration came from, to find it in everyday things, the things we usually overlook, the things that seem insignificant.
You know, there's one poem title that keeps coming back to me. It's The Wind That Loved the Rafflesia Flower. It's just so strange and interesting.
Oh yeah, that title is really something. And remember, we talked about how the Rafflesia flower is a parasite, and it has that really strong smell. It's not your typical beautiful flower.
Right. So what does it mean for the wind to love that kind of flower? What's he trying to tell us about love? Or maybe even about what beauty really is?
That's a great question. And I think it gets at what makes An Jae-dong's poetry so interesting. He's not afraid to challenge our ideas, to make us a little uncomfortable, to make us look at things in a new way. Maybe he's saying that love, like beauty, can be found in the most surprising places.
Maybe he's saying that real love sees beyond what's on the surface. It sees past the imperfections and flaws to find something deeper, something worth connecting with.
And the wind, in this poem, maybe it represents change, movement, a force that's always adapting. Maybe it's a metaphor for how love can change us, how it can make us see things differently and open our hearts to new possibilities.
It's like he's saying that even something as strong and wild as the wind can be touched by love. It can find beauty in something that other people might reject.
And that idea of finding beauty in unexpected places, of liking things that are different, it seems like that's something he does a lot in his work. Remember that line about the erasure? It's not a beautiful object, but he finds beauty in how it sacrifices itself, how it's willing to disappear to do something good.
It's like he's teaching us to look deeper, to find the hidden beauty in everything, in the everyday stuff around us, in nature, even in those hard times that shape us.
And maybe that's the message he wants to share with us, to embrace all of it, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the challenging, to see the beauty in all those things that make us human.
I love that. It's like he's giving us permission to see the world in a new way, to find those moments of awe and meaning in the most unexpected places. Speaking of unexpected things, remember those titles that seem to be about philosophical stuff, like The Truth and Freedom's Boundary?
Oh yeah, those titles definitely make you think about those big life questions, things we all wonder about sometimes. Like, what is truth? What does it mean to be free? These are questions people have been thinking about forever. And An Jae-dong is exploring them using his own experiences and his unique way of looking at things.
And I think that's what makes his approach so cool. He's not just talking about these abstract theories. He's making them real by connecting them to his own life, to the things he sees in nature, to his thoughts about what it means to be human.
And he's doing it in such an honest and open way. He's not afraid to show us his own struggles, his doubts, his own search for meaning. And I think that's why his poetry feels so powerful. It's something we can relate to. It's human. It speaks to something deep inside of us.
You know, as we've been talking about these poems, I keep thinking about that word kabdegi achet, those shells, the outer layers. It's such a powerful image, and it seems like it connects to so many different things in his work.
It really does. It makes me wonder if these poems are kind of like Kabdegi Acha themselves. Maybe they're a way for him to protect himself, to only show what he's comfortable sharing, but at the same time, hinting at those deeper things that are underneath.
And maybe that's why we're so drawn to his poetry. It's like we're invited to peel back those layers, to uncover the hidden truths, the vulnerable parts, the complicated things that make us human. It's a journey of discovery, not just for him, but for us as readers too.
Exactly. And that feeling of discovery, of finding something new every time we read his poems and think about them, it's what keeps us coming back to poetry. It's endlessly fascinating. It's a way to connect with something bigger than ourselves.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've explored so many different meanings, so many ideas that make you think. And I feel like I understand even better now how poetry can touch us, make us question things, and connect us to something bigger.
It's been great sharing this with you. And the most exciting part is that this is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover in An Jae-dong's work, so many more layers to uncover. It's like he's given us a map to this secret world, and now it's up to us to explore it, to find our own meaning, our own connection to his poems.
So, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a challenge. Go back to that title, The Wind That Loved the Rafflesia Flower. Think about that image, that unusual combination. What does it tell us about love? What does it say about finding beauty in things that are different, things that are often overlooked, things that maybe even seem unlovable? Let that image inspire you to explore and find your own meaning in the world. And who knows? Maybe you'll discover your own universe within. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
I feel like we've been on this journey together, right?
Yeah.
Unpacking these poems, finding all these layers of meaning. And I think what's really hitting me now is how An Jae-dong combines all this deep thinking with this real sense of longing. Like he's yearning for connection.
You're right. It's like he's looking for truth, for meaning, but also for love. Like he wants to belong, find his place in the universe.
Remember that line from My Universe Within?
Yeah.
The one where he says he wants to be in someone else's universe if they have room for him. It's like, that sums it all up.
It's so vulnerable and honest. It makes you think about all the ways we look for connection. Through love, through nature, through art, even through these big questions about life. We're all just trying to figure out where we fit in, right?
Yeah. And I think that's why these poems speak to so many people, even if you don't know anything about Korean culture. They talk about those things we all experience, those desires that connect us all as humans.
It's like he's reminding us that we're not alone in those struggles, in wanting those things. And that even when things are hard, even when we're thinking about those big existential questions, there's still beauty out there. There's still connection to be found.
Absolutely. And he finds that beauty in the most surprising places. Remember that line about the chair from Chair, Chair? The one about how he feels more affection for the sturdy, plain wooden chair? It's like he's saying that real strength and beauty aren't about how things look. They're about the things that last, the things that support us and make us feel safe, even if they're not fancy or flashy.
That one really stayed with me too. It makes you think about resilience, like being strong enough to handle whatever life throws at you. Maybe it's about finding that strength in those simple, everyday things, the things that ground us.
I like that. And it connects back to his journey, to him taking a break from writing. Maybe he found that resilience in those ordinary moments, in just living life, observing things, connecting with the world. And maybe it's that resilience that brought him back to poetry, that helped him find his voice again and share what he learned with us.
It's like he's saying that we can find beauty and strength in the most unexpected places, if we're open to it. And speaking of unexpected things, those titles that make you think about those big philosophical questions, the truth, freedom's boundary, they really make you stop and think, don't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. They're like invitations to dig deeper, to really explore those questions that we all face at some point. Like, what is truth? What does it mean to be free? These are the kind of questions philosophers have been wrestling with for ages. And An Jae-dong, he's exploring them through his own life experiences, his own way of seeing the world.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting. He's not just throwing out these abstract ideas. He's making them come alive through his own journey, through the things he sees in nature, through his reflections on being human.
And he does it with such honesty and vulnerability. Like, he's not afraid to show us his own struggles, his doubts, his own journey to find meaning. And I think that's what makes his poetry so powerful. It's relatable. It's real. It speaks to something inside all of us.
As we've been talking, I keep coming back to that image of 갑자기 앞지게리, the shells, the outer layers. It's such a strong image, and it seems to connect to so many things in his poems.
Definitely. It makes you wonder if the poems themselves are like 갑자기 in a way. Like maybe they're a way for him to protect himself.
Yeah.
To share what he's ready to share, but still keep some things hidden. Like those deeper layers are still there beneath the surface.
And maybe that's why we're so drawn to them. It's like we get to peel back those layers and discover those hidden truths, those vulnerable parts, those complex things that make us who we are. It's a journey of discovery, not just for him, but for us as readers, too.
Exactly. And that feeling of finding something new every time you read them and think about them, that's what makes poetry so special. It's like this never-ending source of fascination. It helps us connect with something bigger than ourselves.
This deep dive has been so incredible. We've explored so much meaning, so many ideas, and I feel like I have this whole new appreciation for how poetry can move us, challenge us, connects us to something deeper.
I totally agree. And the most exciting thing is that we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover in An Jae-dong's work. It's like he's given us this map to this amazing world, and now it's our turn to explore, to find our own meaning, our own connection to his poems.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that about wraps up this deep dive into the world of An Jae-dong. Thanks for coming along with us. We'll see you next time for another adventure in poetry.